get the snow up the pant leg thing, you know. But whenever people are able to follow behind you and follow your example, there's footsteps already made for them to follow in, so they don't get all the nasty stuff. And Paul was willing, are we bold enough, like Paul to say, follow me as I follow Christ? We don't want to say that, do we? We don't want to say, be a trailblazer. We don't want to be the one to lead. We want to be the one on the sideline saying, you went the wrong way. Right? But we should be saying, follow me as I follow Christ. Imitate me as I imitate Christ. What his actions you see in me. Once again, I'm not saying following man. I'm saying part of discipleship. Part is that there's leaders. We all imitate things, and we need Christians to step up and lead people. Because we all have somebody that is us. Right? Because we want to say, oh, I'm not. Yes. I'm not perfect. Good. Now you're getting humble. Somebody's watching us, right? We're setting the path for somebody. Somebody's coming behind us. Somebody's watching us in our daily life. Somebody's watching us at our work. When we're at these places, can we say, imitate me as I imitate Christ? Or are we saying, don't watch me because I only act that way on Sunday? Right? We should be able to say in our daily lives, imitate me as I imitate Christ. It's not that we run out there and say that. We just do it. Because God puts love in you. You follow it. I believe we need to stop saying we can't. Right? We just defeat ourselves sometimes. I can't. And that's good. We should admit we can't. But with God, we can. With men, things are impossible. With God, all things are possible. Jesus said it. And I think Paul really is saying, I just think this is me, but I think he's saying we should need to be spiritual leaders and not cheerleaders. And what I mean by that is cheerleaders never get in the game, right? They stand along the sidelines. Nothing wrong with cheerleaders, whoever's cheerleaders here. Nothing wrong with cheerleaders. Nothing wrong with encouraging people. But I'm saying on the spiritual side, spiritual leadership, we can't stand on the sidelines and say, go, go, go. Do as I say, not as I do. And never get in the game, right? See, there's a thing, I don't know who the person said it. He said, kids a lot of times don't listen to what their parents tell them. A lot of times they mimic their actions. They pick up on what they're doing more. And there's like a study with octopuses were the same way. They put it like octopuses in a tank, and they trained them, right? And the octopuses that watched in the other tank picked up on it quicker, and were better at it than the ones they were actually training. So it's saying a lot of times we pick up on things that people do more than what they say. Right? That's why we got to be able to say, we got to be able to live it and say, mimic me as I mimic Christ. Don't just listen to me yap my mouth, right? That's why we're all called at some point to be spiritual leaders to somebody and get off the sidelines and get in the game and say, I'm a spiritual leader. I'm owning that. I'm sick of saying I can't. I'm sick of saying we're not going to do this. I'm not perfect. I struggle. We all do, right? But we're going to get in the game and say, I'm going to follow Christ so the people behind me have footprints to follow. So they're not the one blazing the trails. I'm going to be a leader today. I'm going to be bold like Paul and say that, right? My household and my work. That's what I'm going to try to be an example of. Follow me as I follow Christ. See, a spiritual leader say, yes, I do struggle. Right? He says, I struggle, but I don't want to see you do that. You know, we get relational. We talk to each other about it, you know. One of the biggest things we lack in the church is follow me. We don't want to set a standard. We don't want to set an example. You know why? Because then we have to live up to it. It's work. But there is a standard whether we want to set it or not. It's easier to do the least amount than people expect more of you. My dad told me that one time. I said, "You're crazy." He said, "Don't do too much for your boss. He's going to expect more out of you." I said, "I don't work for him. I work for him. I'm going to do unto him to glorify God. If he expect more out of me, he's probably going to anyway, you know? He's in business. He wants to grow it. He'll work me to death." Try to be spiritual leaders today, huh? Not cheerleaders. You know? I think we should encourage each other on, but also I think we should get inside and be able to dig down with each other and do the work together, you know? The real question is our life worthy of imitating? You know, if somebody followed us around, you know, would we really want to say, "Back off, I don't want you to follow me because you don't know what I'm going to do around two." Right? Or would we be able to say, like Jesus did, "Come, follow me"? Wasn't embarrassed he didn't have a place to live. Wasn't embarrassed that he was going to get chewed out by the Pharisees all the time. He did everything for the glory of God. Imitate me as I imitate Christ. And that's the biggest thing. Paul says, as I imitate Christ. Because in the end, we can't follow man. But really, we need to start discipling each other. We need to really start humbling each other and coming and saying, "I'm hurting in this area. Can you help me?" Right? Do we want to be like anybody? You know, there's traits that people carry that I want to have in my life. Right? Humility. There's all different things I see in people, and I say, "Man, I want some of that. I'm going to talk to them." Are we okay with just how we are, and we don't really want to grow spiritually? We don't want to mimic anybody. We don't want to be disciple. We don't want to talk about our hurts. We just want to come and we want to go home. We want to be left alone. We don't want to be an example. We don't want to set an example. See, to be a good leader, you have to be a good follower, so we have to follow Christ. So if somebody's not following Christ, I'm not mimicking Christ, don't mimic my actions. But make sure you know what Christ is saying to mimic. You know? Because a lot of times we throw stuff and say, "God wouldn't do that. Show me." Right? Because a lot of times we say a lot of things are Christian and God, but we say, "God said this to me. God wants me to do this. God wants me to do that." We got to be very careful about that. As we're following God, we feel these things, but we need to make sure we get confirmation sometimes and just don't put out that label, "God said to do this." Get to follow in God's footsteps. You know, we have to get real with each other. Maybe sometimes we don't disciple, maybe because we haven't been discipled, right? That's what I'm talking about when I say there's a standard. If we have a standard of discipleship, a standard of being authentic, a standard of being real, an example of Christ, then maybe we could get together and be real. That's one reason I push small groups and meeting with people one-on-one. I think that's where discipleship really happens. Not that this isn't discipleship and there's discipleship, but I think when start to say, "I want to meet with you because I need to get real in my life. I want to grow spiritually," I think discipleship starts to happen. And the only way we can do that is if we're getting discipled ourselves, right? You can't disciple yourself.